Gran Turismo.
Gran Turismo.
Whatever the hell it is.
Yeah.
If I lose more than just a race. So I'm not gonna quit.
You've got to prove to everyone that you belong.
Did you like how Sony has like their own like cinematic universe now or whatever?
PlayStation Productions.
PlayStation Productions.
Yeah.
The very beginning.
Sony's already been putting their products in every movie under the sun for the last 20 years.
They have. You watch Casino Royale. He's like rocking a Sony Ericsson.
Of course he is.
They have Sony Vio computers. Like,
right. Yeah.
But I was a little surprised though.
There was a Canon in the beginning.
Someone was filming with a Canon
which
camera.
Which didn't really make sense because it was like, oh, it's 25 years ago, and the guy's rocking an EOS C camera, and it's like, that didn't exist yet. But I had very low expectations going into this movie. One, because I was never a fan of the game, the sim, and most video game adapted movies just suck.
Yeah.
But this one was different because it wasn't just a direct adaptation of a game. It was based on a guy who played the game and then won a contest to really race cars.
What is this?
It's a contest. The best Gran Turismo players in the world get a chance to compete in professional racing.
So they use the real life event to basically have an excuse to make a movie based on the game.
Right. So I went in with low expectations, but then it turned out to be your classic like underdog sports story.
Which I'm a sucker for.
Which, so am I. And I was surprised. I was pleasantly surprised. I didn't think it was amazing, but I did enjoy it way more than I thought I was going to enjoy it.
So for me, when I first saw the trailer, I was like, what the hell is this? And then at the end, when all the credits came up, I saw that Neill Blomkamp directed it. And I was like, oh. And that sort of leveled off my expectations.
Yeah.
And then it pretty much ended up being exactly what I thought it was going to be.
Right. He's really done nothing but like sci-fi.
Absolutely, but
most of his career.
But
so this was a little different.
Said, he's a competent filmmaker. Even though I don't like most of his movies, he's still a very competent filmmaker. So I'm like, and like, Elysium didn't kind of register well with audiences. Neither did Chappie.
They're both good-looking movies, though.
They're both really good-looking movies. They're
and
both
I happen
competently
to love
made.
Chappie.
Yeah, I mean, like. There are things about I do like Chappie, but I understand why people don't like it.
Sure, yeah, I get the dislike.
Yeah, Elysium, there's some cool stuff in it, but overall, that's like a leftist movie before like.
There's too much social commentary.
Yeah. You know, thank God they didn't come out nowadays, because if they made that now, there would be like non-binary shit in it, as well as like the it would be horrible. The border messaging that's in it.
Yeah.
Anyways. He still is a respectable filmmaker, and like even because Elysium and Chappie didn't really perform that well, and then he also made that movie Demonic, which I haven't seen that, but I hear that's a piece of shit. That's the only movie of his
I haven't seen. But
I hear it's a real piece of shit, but I think he's sort of like in filmmaker purgatory right now.
I'm hoping this gets him out, actually.
Yeah, well, Sony was like, all right, well, we want to make this thing. Who do we got that we can use? And it's like, well, Neill Blomkamp, he does like all of Sony's movies pretty much. So it's like, all right, well, we'll call him up. He's in director purgatory. We can probably get him cheap.
And this is the type of movie that kind of demands very good special effects.
Yes.
And one thing about Neill Blomkamp that I do like a lot is he definitely doesn't cut corners with his visual effects.
No.
His movies look very good, and they look real.
Yeah, that's what we were saying when we saw the movie. One of our biggest complaints on this channel when we talk about these big budget movies is just like how no one strives to make anything look real anymore.
Right,
you watch Ant-Man,
every
that movie
Marvel
looks like
movie
shit.
We've seen in the last year just looks like trash.
But he tries to make everything look as photorealistic as possible.
Yeah, that's why I was like so blown away the first time I saw Chappie, because the robot looks real.
Yeah. So he's very good at that stuff.
Yeah.
And
that definitely shows in this movie.
For sure.
It's a good looking movie. It's basically a Sony Venice
camera demo.
Yeah.
This would have been perfect for Michael Bay to direct.
Yeah.
You know, it has a stupid script, and it's all about the visuals and the action, you know?
Right.
And like that's just what he excels at.
Yeah. Speaking of the script, of the plot, it's based on a true story. Now, I did look into it after. Like, I didn't read up anything about this guy before we saw the movie. I wanted to go in blind and experience it. And they did change the order of certain events that happened in real life versus in the movie, which we'll get to later. But the plot is based on the true story of, I guess it's Nissan, who holds this competition.
No, Nissan.
I'm sorry.
Nissan.
Over at Nissan, they come up with this cockamamie scheme to hold a competition for the best Gran Turismo sim drivers in the world to compete, and whoever the best is gets to drive and compete in a real race car against real race car drivers for motorsport.
And the idea is that Gran Turismo is not a game, it's a simulator.
It's a simulator,
so everyone
yes.
that's really good at that, but
should know how to drive a car to drive the cars, except they don't physically experience what it's like to drive a car.
Yeah.
So then they take all these gamers, they put them through this academy, and of course there's one guy left standing at the end, and that's the main character, Jan. And it's about his life going through this academy and then becoming a real racer.
Yeah.
And the ups and downs and that, overcoming his confidence issues.
Yeah.
To compete on a professional level.
Yes, and then him dealing with his family. And
right, his family not supporting him, and then, there's...
It's like Rudy.
It's like Rudy, right.
Yeah.
There's a good son-father dynamic in it, where the father is like, you can follow your dreams, but realistic dreams,
Yeah.
And he's like, you don't believe in me? And then he goes off and does his thing. And it's got that whole underdog element. And this is something I appreciated. The script knows what it is. It's just a classic story that's been told many times. And it's been told well in other films.
It's been told better.
It's been told better.
Yeah.
In the end, I was satisfied.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind when there's a plot that's super simple or that we've seen it before. It doesn't matter to me as long as it's either A,
entertaining,
fresh,
yeah.
or B, it's done competently. And this one definitely was. And
right.
I was never bored during it. I know it's kind of a saying that we say, oh, I was never bored, but
right.
it was entertaining. But there's some stupid shit.
Yeah. And there are little things that this movie did that I appreciated, like some of the video game overlay stuff that you were never confused as to whose car we were on or which character we were looking at, because they're wearing a helmet so you can't see them.
They'd be driving on the track and then a little overlay would pop up
showing
above
his
the car,
place,
showing where he was.
How he's moving through the rank,
accompanied by a Sony PlayStation sound effect.
Little ding,
yeah. But
but that stuff worked.
Yeah, it all worked. It was visually coherent. Neill Blomkamp's also very good at kind of guiding the audience through action sequences, whereas most movies are so chaotic nowadays. Shaky cam, all this stuff, you can't tell what the hell's going on.
The action was handled really well. The camera work, exceptional.
Yeah.
It was all cohesive.
Mm-hmm.
Probably the best overall thing about the film.
Yeah.
And then you get into the cast of characters. David Harbour, the old mentor who's been there, done that, washed out, but still has a couple things to teach the young kid. He's the only one crazy enough to do this. In my opinion, he carried the film.
I can't stop now.
Must be a new experience for you, moving your legs. You puked on my lawn.
He did carry the film.
He was the best character, the most engaging character, the best actor, and even though some of his lines were a little some of the writing was a little cheesy.
There were some massive shortcomings in the script department, and he was just kind of carrying it. And I feel like there were a few lines that he said where it's you can see it on his face, he knows that this is a shitty line.
You can see his eyes sighing.
But he's doing his damnedest to make it as professional as possible.
Orlando Bloom's trying to convince him to teach these kids, and he's like, those days are in the rearview mirror. You can hear his brain groaning, saying lines like that. And he's got quite a few lines like that. But still, he's fantastic. I love when he pops up. He's great. Mm-hmm. Orlando Bloom was terrible.
Orlando Bloom, I remember back in the day, of course, Lord of the Rings. I fucking hated him in Lord of the Rings, though. I always hated him. I always thought he was a shitty actor. And then in Pirates of the Caribbean,
he's fine in
bullshit.
Pirates.
There's a line. No, he's dude. There's a line in Pirates of the Caribbean where he's
cheesy movies anyway.
Where he's like, "They wanted my blood, the blood of a pirate." It's so fucking terrible how he does it. He's always been a shit actor. He's one of those guys that, back in the day, was the flavor of the month. They kept trying to make him happen.
He was skating through on his looks.
Yeah, which he looks like a little bitch, but whatever. Fucking Legolas gets off his horse.
I liked Legolas, but that.
Hey man,
We're talking about Orlando Bloom.
I like the character. Do I like him? No. But anyways, Orlando Bloom sucks. And like,
he was kind of like a skeezy marketing executive.
Yeah, they tried to make him slimy.
But like there were times when he was and times where he wasn't. They never went all the way with his character. They didn't embrace it.
The film didn't embrace a lot of things. It embraced like it in the sense that it knew what it was. But characters like that, you could have gone all the way, make him like this total cheeseball slime fest.
They could have, but I mean, like, okay, again, it's based on a true story. How much of a slimeball was this guy? Like, they probably took some liberties with it. But with Orlando Bloom, he's the one that has this idea for this whole competition. And it's crazy and everything, but like the movie just starts and he just already has the idea. Like you never get to see where the idea comes from, or how did he specifically come up with it, or like why this is like his dream.
He just shows up like at a business seminar, just pitches the idea.
I have a dream to make the best sim drivers in the world real drivers and inspire 80 million game players. And it's like, what made you think of that? It doesn't matter. That's just his dream and he's going for it. It's like, okay. And then the executives at Nissan are like, okay, let's do it. What the fuck? So they just go into it.
They had to do it so they can reach that demographic. They wanted to reach the youths.
The youths.
So
all the basement dwellers.
That was their way. So Nissan can get the young kids buying their cars.
Right. Because when I think of racing cars, I think of Nissan. But then again, this is a world that I don't know anything about. I was never into like the world of motorsport. I feel like going into it, I was at that disadvantage. But even someone like an outsider who doesn't really know a lot about this world, I still enjoyed it a lot. Dude, like they still painted a picture of this world enough that I was like, okay.
I don't watch sports, but I love sports movies.
Beta!
So and that's how this is for me. Like I can enjoy a film even if I'm not into whatever it is.
Sure,
and
yeah.
And I appreciate getting glimpses into things that like I'm not into.
Right, and I thought that was a sign of the movie succeeding, that it was still able to, draw us in, even though we don't really care about the world. I mean, I still don't, but I did for the 2 hours and 15 minutes that we were watching it. I was engaged.
The kid that plays Jan, relative newcomer, I think.
Yeah, I haven't seen him in anything.
Yeah, whenever that kid talked, Clive Owen's voice came out of his mouth.
I'm not missing my race.
I swear to God, it sounded exactly like him.
Yeah,
but he was okay.
Yeah, he wasn't amazing. He wasn't bad. He was kind of middle of the road. There's no one else really in the film aside from his parents.
Oh, you know who's solid? Jamon Hinsu. He's good.
He's so underrated, that guy.
Very underrated.
That guy does not get enough work.
No.
He plays Jan's father, who is an ex-soccer player.
Football.
Ex-footy player. And he's trying to instill in him, like, son, you're going to end up working at the train yard like me if you don't, like, go to school and stop playing video games. And he's not wrong. Like, what this kid ends up doing in this film is like literally a 1 in a million shot.
Yeah, he thinks his kid's a fucking weirdo.
He thinks his kid's a weirdo.
There's that scene where he walks in on his kid playing and he's just like, "You're not gay, are you?"
It's not weird that he's like, "Hey, do something realistic with your life."
No.
Before that competition showed up, he would have just been working in a lingerie store. Whatever the hell he was working in, like an underwear store or something.
Yeah.
Like, that wouldn't have changed. He would have still been doing that.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't paying the bills playing Gran Turismo.
It's like one of those interesting things where if I were to watch this movie when I was young, like if I was in my teens and I watched this, would I be on the kids' side? Or like when I'm watching it, I sympathize with Jamon Hinsu's character.
Because you're looking at your son like...
Yeah, what are you doing, you fucking loser?
You're playing video games all day. Like, that's not a career.
So...
So he's not wrong.
No.
But at the same time, their relationship develops throughout the film to the point where Jan succeeds and he shows up, the dad shows up.
It's one of the best scenes in the movie, if not the best scene. One of the best scenes.
They have a really great emotional moment where he tells him how proud he is and how he was wrong and he should have supported his dream, and he's got like his dad's little football sticker on his helmet and he's like, it's cliche, but it was good.
Yeah, no, I mean...
It still was an impactful, emotional moment.
You know what I appreciated about that scene? Like, he has his spiel, the tears start pouring, And then he throws in that line where he says, "I just don't understand this video game shit," or whatever he says. That was so good.
Yeah,
because that's like his way of like saying like, "I'm sorry, like I should have supported you, but I just don't get this stuff. I just don't
get this shit." Yeah. Right. And it's like, it's okay, Dad. Like, this doesn't happen every day. So you're kind of right that you were shitting on this dream, because it's not a dream. He's just playing a video game all day. It's like, oh, but he's the best in the world. It's like, and?
Well,
is anyone hiring for that?
There's more to it as well. Like, I'm sure that the kid was just kind of aimless and that's all he was doing. If like he was doing something in his life, then his dad would have probably backed off of him.
Right. And then I didn't even realize this until after I was looking it up. The mom, his mom was...
Who is that?
The Spice Girl.
That's Ginger Spice.
Yeah, Ginger Spice.
Holy shit. Like, I kept looking at her going, who the hell is that?
Yeah.
Sometimes she would look kind of hot.
Ginger Spice.
Yeah, that makes sense then.
Yeah.
Still not Posh Spice, but...
No.
You know.
But who is?
Welcome to our review of Indiana Jones and the...
So there is one thing that the movie is kind of catching some flack for. The accident that he gets in the movie, which comes after he gets his license.
Yeah.
It was filmed really well. Like when he catches air, you just see the car like go up in slow motion and then all of a sudden just go to full speed and just fly. I looked it up after the fact. There's a video of the actual accident, and it looks exactly like how they captured it.
No shit.
Yeah, they did a really good job capturing it, and they used that scene in the movie as a means to help Jan overcome his confidence issue.
I didn't see that's what I didn't see about the movie is like that whole conflict with him crashing and then like him having to get over that. That became a big part of the movie.
Correct. And what people are upset about is that in real life, he placed third at Le Mans before the accident.
Okay, I see.
So
yeah, in the movie, Le Mans is like the catalyst of him getting over like that.
Yeah, it's like the pinnacle of his career, right? And that has to come after a period of great despair.
That's
right, because that's how stories are built. So people are like, "Oh, you're just using this accident in the movie as a stupid catalyst for character growth," and it's like, yeah. Because imagine if the accident, like, think about that in terms of like how you would structure a story, right? He wins at Le Mans, and then the accident happens, and then the movie's over.
Yeah,
it doesn't really play out the same way. It doesn't hit the same.
I'm not going to go so far as like, oh, that ruined my experience of watching the film. Now that I know that, but at the same time, if that is like annoying to you, like I do understand why that's annoying.
But to me, it doesn't bother me because it's not like a one-to-one. It's not a documentary about the guy's life. It's a fictional story. Fictional stories take true events and jumble them up all the time. Now, whether you can live with that or that annoys the shit out of you, that's your own personal thing. For me personally, after I learned that the accident came after, it's like, okay, I guess that's kind of stupid that they swapped it around. But then I thought about it. It's like, well, I guess I understand why they did it to make the story flow better. To just make that story work.
Right, that doesn't...
I let that slide. That one didn't bother me as much.
I guess it kind of bothers me, but I don't care.
Right,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It still doesn't ruin the experience of seeing it for me.
Like he still went through the accident. I think people are upset about it only because somebody died in the accident.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, you're just using this tragedy and this death as a means for his character development in the movie. It's like, well, yeah.
Well, anytime a movie starts with based on a true story. Now, this movie doesn't say that, but it's all
not,
bullshit.
This is a true story. It's based on a true story.
Based on a kernel of truth.
Right. That's how all of these movies are.
Yeah.
They always take liberties. Mm-hmm. They have to compress time. You're watching an entire dude's life in 2 hours.
You don't just have to compress time. You also have to create a film narrative structure.
Right. And not everybody's life flows like a film narrative.
Right.
This whole thing is insane, but out of the couch surfing nerds that you sent me, he is the best one. You made it.
Yes! Welcome to Team Nissan.
As far as like a rating for this film, for me, last night when we saw it, my score was a little lower. And then as I was reading about it and following the story a little more, it kind of came up a little bit because I thought they did do a really good job honoring the true story. Despite that, you know, some things were out of order, whatever. You got to tell a compelling film story. I'm giving it a 7 out of 10.
Okay.
Which last night I was at a 6.5, but I came up a little bit because I was like, no, it was solid. There wasn't a lot of bullshit in it.
I thought for sure you were going to give it a 7.5.
Really?
Yeah, I knew you liked it a little bit more than me.
Yeah.
But I was trying to gauge where you were at.
Yeah.
I'm going to give it a 6.5. So you changed your score. Mine just stayed the same.
Yeah. Anybody who's a fan of the game,
It's the
The
simulation.
Sim, will like this film a lot.
If you're a young kid and you're into this stuff, you'll probably like the
Yeah.
movie.
On the woke side, there was very, very little. There was like some minor stuff in the beginning, but like, when I say like minor, like very minor, where it's just like, oh son, that's not our world. It's like only rich people can race cars and this and that. It's like, well, okay, maybe that's true. I don't really know how one gets into this world of motorsports, but you look at David Harbour's character in the film. They made a point of saying like, oh, he was just some kid from Iowa who got into this and he was racing cars and then he quit because of, he got into an accident.
Right.
And now he's just a lowly mechanic or whatever. Like, it didn't feel like his character came from money. Right there, it feels like, okay, just because you don't have money doesn't mean you can't get into this type of sport. It might be harder, of course. There was just like a few lines here and there where it's like, oh, I get it. Your social class keeps you down and you can't.
Well, see, I don't know.
And-
I guess I just didn't see it that way. Like, I understand why you do. But I look back at, we said this earlier, but Rudy, that's kind of what Rudy's dad was telling Rudy as well. Like, we just don't come from
That world.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
And
mean, this is like...
it's like
minor.
It's like working class language.
It's
you know what I
working
mean?
class language, right? Yeah.
And so, yeah, like I get it, but I don't know. I just didn't.
And that's fine. That's fine. This was such a tiny nitpick for me. It was just a couple lines, just the way they were presented. I was like, whatever. For me, it's like, okay, whatever, half a rainbow.
I'm gonna give it 0 rainbows. Actually, I honestly didn't. I was not.
And that's
like there was no agenda stuff popping out as I was watching it. Like nothing distracting.
Yeah.
And it's surprising because all of Neill Blomkamp's movies.
he's very vocal with his agenda.
Yes, like
with his social commentary, and this really didn't have much.
This is a case of like it's like we've talked about this before, where there are action movies in the '80s that I love, like RoboCop. Huge social commentary movies, left-wing social commentary movies, but they're done so well that it doesn't matter. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's kind of how like District 9 is a very, very left-wing movie, but it's done really, really well. So even though I might not agree with the political messaging, he does it in a way where it's like very creative, it's thought-provoking, all of that stuff. But what I'm getting at is, he's usually one to interject this kind of stuff in his movies, and I'm very glad
it was barely present.
I'm very glad to say that there was none in this whatsoever.
Yeah, it was just a good, entertaining summer blockbuster movie that hit all the beats of a normal story like this,
with some stupid shit sprinkled in there and some really terrible dialogue.
Yes, but I do hope the movie actually does well.
Yeah,
and I feel like it's going to struggle a bit being at the tail end of the summer season for blockbusters.
August, dumping grounds for summer season.
Yeah, I guess so. But I would still like to see it perform well now that we're past the really big releases.
I just want it to perform well because I want Neill Blomkamp to continue making movies. Again, he's like,
he deserves a
obviously
platform. He's
left-wing
a good filmmaker.
weirdo, but he is a great filmmaker.
He's a good filmmaker, so I'll watch whatever he does, despite the left-wing messaging.
Anyways, not bad. Check it out.
Yep.